Everyone for those wonderful moments in the stillness, in the silence. And we know that has made us very receptive to the next part of our gathering today, where we ask Rev Phyllis to present today's message. And it's a beauty. I love the title, Phyllis. Welcome along. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for a lovely meditation.
Thank you.
It's always a joy to join you people in Melbourne, and I do feel for you now that you're back in lockdown and an extended area of lockdown. I was talking to my son who lives over in Melbourne last night, and he said, "Oh, it's just the way of life now, Mum." And I thought, well, I hope not. I hope it changes very soon for you all. However, let's get to the message for today. So, meet my friend Will. I really would like to introduce you to him. Will has been a real friend during my many years of life. I'm grateful for his encouragement and support. He's always been there for me to turn to, and yet I did sometimes misuse him. Will is one of the family of powers, and they all reside within the home that I too live in and I take care of. Each of the family have chosen different parts of the home to occupy, and Will has chosen the area in the front of the top floor. He lives next to Stan, Faith, and Imogen, also share the top area. Faith, helping me to believe in a multitude of good and sometimes not so good ideas. Imogen has supported me to imagine the things I would like to have in life. And of course, Stan has helped me with understanding stuff over the years. Now, my friend Will, who I'm going to really, hopefully, explain more to you how he has truly been a friend in my life, has helped me to choose and become motivated. His committed and willingness to follow through on those things I have chosen to do is just astounding. The rest of the Power family occupy other parts of the building, some at the bottom area, others more central. But what I'm pleased about is that I can call on each one of them, and they are always willing to support me in whatever I ask of them. There may have been times when I would have called them squatters because I was unaware that they existed, although now I know I've been using them throughout my life. But let's get back to Will. As I said, Will has been an occupant of my home since I was born, even though for many years I was not aware of his existence in the same way I am now. In later years, and particularly since I came into Unity and learned about the family of powers, I can look back and see how Will has responded to my beck and call, even when it may not have been in my best interest to pursue whatever it was I had chosen to focus on. You see, over the years, I have learned that because they are indifferent to how I use, how he is indifferent to how I use him and simply responds to any request, it's the best kind of friendship you can have. You see, by himself, Will is neutral. He can be called into service for help or harm. Will support me to express a willingness to do the right thing for myself and all concerned, or a willfulness, which is usually from my own selfish desires. When I was considering what I would talk about today, I considered examples in my own life and how I had called upon my friend Will to support me in those decisions. When I look back, I can cite several incidents where I engaged Will to support me to achieve a goal. One such time was when, for 18 months, I suppressed the voice within me that urged me to go to Perth to live. I chose to dismiss that voice. And a few weeks ago, Diane explained to us that will is our chooser. So you see, I used will again there. You see, I had no idea why I wanted to go to Perth to live. I'd never been there. So why would I want to go there to live? However, this voice within me persisted. And so eventually, without realizing it at that time, I engaged will again, but this time it was to support me to make the move. I set a date and worked to get everything in order to make that life-changing journey. In looking back, I believe I also engaged faith and understanding, and together with their support, I boarded the Indian Pacific train on the date I had previously set. How was faith involved? At that time, I believed that I could do this. It was challenging, believe me. It seemed to me that there was a reason why this voice in my head that kept telling me to move to Perth hadn't let go. And so I decided to listen and make that move. I guess you could call this blind faith, because I thought I would either love Perth and settle down, or I would hate it and choose to return to Adelaide, where I could re-establish myself in a new home. I had no idea what the outcome would be. And with understanding, I knew I always had choices. From this experience, I can see that will, without faith and understanding and even imagination, who also played a part, would not have worked so easily for me. These four always work well together. And if one is left out of the equation, well, things may not always work out so well. Interesting that the centre that Charles Fillmore chose for each of these powers resides in the top part of the home. Of course, I'm talking about our body, and they're all very close to one another. When I made the decision to go to Perth to live, I chose to listen to that voice in my head. Not an easy thing for someone who had always allowed others to make decisions for me. And when I look back at how I had worked through all the arrangements of selling my family home, organising removalists, deciding how I would travel, what I would take, etc., I became aware that in this and probably all of the major activities that any of us make, will was a major player, and every other power of the member of the power family was involved in the process. I wondered as I was writing this, if Leslie looked back at how she and Jim drew on their innate powers to make the major decisions that they have just experienced. So let me tell you how, in choosing to make the move, I used each of the 12, the family of 12, in order to make that move. First, I was willing to commit to a major change in my life. I brought on board understanding, knowing that I may not enjoy living in Perth and could then choose to come back to Adelaide. So here I had wisdom on board. Faith that I could do this was also with me because I believed this was possible. Love for the adventure ahead was certainly with me, and I certainly needed zeal to do what was needed to sort all the aspects of this major move. I had been willing to release stuff, and through all the organising, I used the power of discernment and strength, and of course, order was required in organising too. My imagination was working overtime, believe me, offering different possibilities of what I might encounter. And life, well, I was certainly engaging life that gave me vitality, and I felt enlivened in all the organisation. What I have learned from knowing about the 12 abilities is that I use them even when I'm not aware of using them. Each one comes to my assistance, regardless of whether or not it is a wise choice or not. As caretaker of the home I inhabit, along with the 12 abilities, they, unlike myself, do not judge, do not question or argue, and they do whatever I call them to do, be it day or night, summer or winter. They are always willing to work with me and the choices that I make. My friend Will is not perturbed if I become willful, making a decision that ultimately is not in my best interest or anyone else's interest. He's not perturbed if I make a decision that's going to work in my favour either. He just works alongside of me, motivating me and moving me forward. I remember over the years, I have heard myself and others say, well, I had no choice, and proceed to take a path that leads to despair, a life with no direction or happiness. And then I learned that I have living within me a power that gives me the opportunity to choose the kind of life that I want to live. The power to be happy, prosperous, healthy, or any other joyful expression that I choose. It is a wonderful feeling knowing that Will lives within me, ready, willing, and able to partner with his 11 other housemates to assist me in making choices that are life-affirming and growth-oriented. Recently, I read an article that I received by email from Unity Worldwide Ministries, and it was written by Linda Martella Whitsett, who is one of the authors that we're going to be looking at in the 12 Powers class. But in this article, she wrote, will is the spiritual capacity to choose, to commit, and to be willing. Although choice involves effort, to choose is not to force, I beg your pardon. There seems to be a sweet spot in the balance between effort and allowing, where we will become powerful. The power of will is less about exerting control over what is happening and more about choosing our response to what is happening. It's easy to confuse the power of will with willpower, which often fails. Just think about New Year's Eve resolutions, or to believe that will is imposed by God, which means it is unwelcome and hard. Neither of these understandings inspires the practice of spiritual will, and neither explains the potential of our great innate power of will. Willingness means I already choose, I commit, and now I simply follow through. Will is at its best when directed toward our inner spiritual capacity to fulfill the principle rather than fixated on the circumstances and conditions appearing in any moment. This focus gathers the forces of mind and body that transform us and our circumstances. End of quote. You're probably well aware that daily we are confronted with a multitude of choices. The options that face us can seem overwhelming. You and I have control and responsibility to realise that we always have a choice. And it is in our best interest to consider the options and using our power of wisdom and understanding to make the right choice. In his book, The 12 Powers of Man, Charles Fillmore used the title for his chapter about the faculty of will, "The Will is the Man." Rather a powerful statement, isn't it? And this idea, he says, developed because the will is possible only through the development of mind. And as man is mind, and inverted commas, the will is the man. The conclusion was reached because the will moves to action all the other faculties and seems to be the whole process. However, Charles then goes on to explain, the will is undoubtedly the focal point around which all action centers. When there is harmony of mind, when there is harmony of mind, semicolon. But the rule has been accepted by schools of philosophy from most ancient times down to the present, that the will and the understanding are very closely related. The understanding, comprehending, all our speculative, the will our active powers. So you can see how will, it needs to be a friend in our lives, and we need to really call on him in positive ways. So in conclusion, let us all know that within us is a powerhouse of support when we are willing to engage the 12 abilities and use them to a new and greater expression of our full potential and authentic self. With my friend Will and your own innate power of will, we can each shine a brighter light of understanding, love, and wisdom when we are willing to use our friend Will, the chooser, and choose wisely. Thank you.
Go. Thank you, Phyllis. That was amazing. Food for thought, and what a wonderful month it is. You've given us a new dimension on that power, and let's keep that going as we listen to